I'm not the bubble. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm not the bubble. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin. I'm not the bubble. I'm the pin.
You're listening to Anyobservation, the best NFT, crypto, and gaming podcast ever. With your host, Anders Bjork.
Yes, now we are live. It's been a long time since I've done an interview, been a crazy 2 months over the winter, and today I'm joined by no other than Michael Rubinelli. I'm sorry if I squashed that name. And you are the head of studio at the Wax Studio and the Blockchain Brawlers, correct?
Yeah, I'm the head of game studios. So Wax Studios is a bunch of different businesses, but I head up the games initiative. And you're a legend around the halls of Wax, so to speak. So naturally, I'm flattered and honored to be here.
I'm very happy that you joined me today, because I've been with Wax for a long time. My hat is here, and you can see it's getting dirty and everything. It's not a new hat. It's been here for a while. New studio, new everything. But that's all good. So, Mike, for us, you are new to the Wax ecosystem from the outside. So, should we start by you introducing yourself a little bit, about your background and what brought you to work with Bcbrawlers?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a kind of a long-standing, video game maker, right? So I've had a passion since I was a young child to be in the gaming industry. Classic, my mom, stop playing those stupid video games, do your homework, don't play video games because you can't make any money in that. And like all these things all my life, I think were kind of the foundation of where my passions came from. And, I happened upon the ability to go out and build some businesses around video games early in my life while I was in college. And I saw a path to monetization there for me personally. And then I took all that kind of money I made and went to CES in Chicago when that was a thing. And I was just walking around the show floor like a kid in a candy store. Like, this is Xanadu. And I ran into people at Electronic Arts, and they said, "Hey, you're young and enthusiastic and love gaming. You want to come work here?" I mean, that's kind of the summation of everything. And I ultimately said, "This can't be real. And where's the camera? And am I being punked?" But it was real, and I got hired into EA and started my career there, a few years ago, and have made games from a production track ever since. And so it's been really a wonderful and rewarding life.
So are you fine with dropping some of the titles that you worked with, or is that something you keep to yourself?
No. Look, I've the things I've worked on are very public. So and actually, it's an immense source of pride for me. I don't want to sound like I'm humble bragging though. So I ran John Madden football. Even got design credit on the last few versions I worked on, which was really just a wonderful moment for me as an individual. I've also worked on and brought NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat and Marvel Avengers Alliance and all the WWE, WCW games at THQ, Summoner, Red Faction, on and on and on. It's just a really long list of titles, whether it's social, mobile, every console imaginable. I've had a hand in bringing to the market kind of north of 450 games. I think I lost track. Candidly, I don't keep track of all those numbers, but I've done a lot of things. And I'll tell you, there was a moment in my history, which really, I think, defines a lot of kind of why I am in this industry and why this job at Wax is so super exciting to me. Is we were finaling a version of John Madden football for the Genesis. And, pass interference was something that the players could exploit, right? There's a clear exploit where the offensive player could draw it on the defensive player. And it was really just a bad player experience. And we were about to go gold master. And it was 3 a.m, and me and the programmer were trying to get the last bug squared away so we get the gold master candidate to Sega to print millions of copies and get them into the market. And I had this really depressed look on my face, and the programmer's like, "What's wrong? Are you super tired?" I'm like, "Well, no, it's just pass interference is going to go out in this version again broken. I'm just a tester at this point, keep in mind, so I don't have any kind of juice." He said, "Well, what do you mean pass interference is broken?" I'm like, "Well, we call pass interference defensively, but the offensive player can trigger it every single time if they're really good." He's like, "Well, let's fix it." I'm like, "What do you mean let's fix it?" He goes, "Well, let's see how it works, and you tell me how it should work." I'm like, "I'm just a tester." And, this is a massive franchise and it's super important for EA. And he said, look, this is how it works. You tell me how it should work. Let's tune it. And so we spent like the next 45 minutes tuning it and testing it. And it felt really good. And it felt as it was designed, as it was intended, as it happens in the real world. And he said, yeah, look, if your boss doesn't like this, we'll take it out. It takes me 3 minutes. I'm like, okay, great. So I was like, this is now like 4 a.m. and I'm just like high as a kite on adrenaline. I'm just like, this is the coolest thing ever. Because now a creative change that I have made is going to positively impact the lives of players forever. Like something I thought was a good idea. Like it's terrifying to some people that you're putting your ideas for others to judge. It's actually, exciting and, just totally energizing for others. And I'm in that camp of, I want to take that risk because I think this is really, really good. And I think you're going to benefit because I'm a player. So I see it and feel your pain. So I didn't go to sleep that night. Obviously, my boss rolls in the next morning at 9 a.m. And I'm like, he's like, we all ready to go to Sega for Gold Master in like an hour? I'm like, yes, but I made a change to the game. He's like, what? I'm like, well, I don't want to tell you what it is. I want to just play it with you because you can play a game in like 20 minutes. I'm play with you and I want you to see what you think. And if you don't like it and if you don't notice what it is, great. If you see it and you like it, okay, fine. Like, but we can change things so nothing's permanent. And so we start playing it and he tries to pull pass interference on me, in the old way, the old exploitative way. And he stopped, he put down his controller, like, you changed pass interference. I said, I'm sitting there thinking, okay. And now here comes the part where he goes, and you're fired. And I'm like, I did. And he said, well, why'd you do that? I said, well, I did it for these reasons, which we know are not good. He's like, okay. He's like, and what causes it now? I said, this is how it gets triggered now. He's like, oh, that's really smart. He's like, okay, leave it in. And I was like, at that moment, there's such just instant validation that my tastes and my beliefs and doing things that are very player focused was a super positive thing. And knowing that I could make creative decisions that, enhance the entertainment value of what was we were putting forward to the market, like that still defines me to this day. And so the two things I've learned in my career that have always served me really, really well is make sure you're working with great developers and make sure you do things that are player focused, right? The combination of those two things, you can't go wrong. Like it's hard to take a average to below average developer making an incredible game. And it's hard to ignore the community and your set of players and their wants and their desires and their preferences and have a successful commercial and critical title. And so I've always my decision matrix is always kind of a blending of those two things. And we always say we work at the player and their problem and we work backwards to technology opposed to, hey, here's an idea, let's ram it down their throats. It's like, well, what is the need and what is the ask? And so that really is kind of how I'm wired.
And tackling a blockchain-based game and a play-to-earn game with NFTs, how is that challenge compared to the more, well, it's very different to produce the standalone games compared to this because this has a lot of different moving aspects.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people draw parallels to 2009, 2010, 2011 when free-to-play gaming was all the rage. And, a lot of big publishers said, let me get this straight. You spend millions of dollars to develop a game. 99% of your audience will never pay you. 1% does pay you, but when they pay you 25 cents or 49 cents or 99 cents. And that's going to be profitable? Yes. Like, no, it's not. Like you could see the resistance they had in that space, right? And you can see that when you have a business model change, which is what free to play was, right? That's a company killer. Like if you don't know how to do that. And so because the risk is so high, these big companies stayed on the sidelines. So what happened in the free-to-play space? Companies like Zynga and Scopely and Rovio and King.com and Supercell all came to be because they said we're actually going to singularly focus on free-to-play, and we're going to figure out what that model is because we know it has value, right? Because user acquisition is hard, but if you remove the friction of retail purchases, you're actually going to get a giant top of the funnel, which is a really good thing. And how do we monetize them and keep them? It's like I draw a lot of parallels to that. And to me, to be a part of that and to learn the valuable lessons there was really kind of future proofing in terms of kind of operating off of analytics. So now we come fast forward kind of 10 years to pay to earn, and the parallels are striking. We've talked to all these big publishers in the AAA kind of space and said we don't want anything to do with pay to earn because there's security concerns and there's echo. The echo blowback is terrible. Like they're doing it, they're not embracing it for all the wrong reasons, which we've seen before. So we expected that. Yeah. What I think now we have to do at Wax and what we're going to do and what we're doing with blockchain brawlers, we're putting all our money where our mouth is give an incredible player experience with a very eco-friendly kind of tech, which is our delegated proof of stake, but yet bring a player experience where we have a different approach to the model, to engagement, to retention, to long-term play, that we think our way of thinking about it, our paradigm is much, much better than anybody else. And the things that we have at our disposal are much greater than anybody else. So we think we have a much more likely chance to build a game that can run and grow steadily over many, many years. The obvious fact is there's no paradigm, right? People go, well, Axie this, or Splinterlands or Farmers World, and those are all well and good. But, show me where you can do that, where you don't have this massive peak at the beginning, and then you have this collapse and maybe another peak, and then people are just kind of bumping along. We think we have this steady and sustained growth over a long period of time, and that's what we're angling for. And that's how we've designed our economy, our content, and our roadmap.
Okay, that's a lot of things, and I think we will come back to a lot of these topics and break them down a little bit.
I apologize. I have the habit of doing that sometimes.
No, but that is great, and I love that you share so much information, because this kind of information is so hard to break down in text or in short clips. You really need to sit down and be able to express you fully to get the grasp of who you are and where the entire studio wants to take this project, and that can add a lot of trust for people. And you answered probably a lot of people's question about the long-term health of the Blockchain Brawlers franchise and game, that you aim to have this slow growth over time. And how do you plan to reach that?
Yeah, look, it's I will tell you what our philosophy is, and we can contrast it a little bit with what has happened before us. And we don't say these things to disparage those who have tried to blaze these trails. These are really, really hard problems to solve. There are not obvious answers. If there were, it'd be a template and everybody would do it, and there'd be no tension. But if we take a step back and we look at historically what has happened, is we've had kind of these non-game developers build these DeFi experiences wrapped in the cloak of potentially a game. And so the things that they do, there's a tokenomics report where we look at, we look at block emissions and deflationary measures and token pools and all of these things. Like, that was all well and good for what that was, but those were very FI related, terms and actions. We want to build a game. But yet we understand the tokenomics piece as it relates to building a game relative to the tokenomics piece of building a DeFi activity. And so it's a subtle but important distinction and differentiation. So knowing that, what we've said is, look, it's natural for you to want to ask for these things like, a white paper tied to a tokenomics report, tied to this, tied to that, because that's what exists today. But what we're actually saying is we're going to give you the information we think is most relevant and most valid for your decision-making in terms of when to engage. So we've taken this real kind of slow growth approach because we want to make sure. So what we've done is we have modeled the first kind of 6 months of daily play from a bottoms up and a top down standpoint. We have a couple different player cohorts we've looked at, players who start with the one-of-one legendary brawlers and players who start with the common or uncommon brawlers. And we see what those play patterns want to be. And we've modeled that, what that expectation is. So we say, look, over the next 6 months, this is what we expect, sort of brawl in, brawl out, gold NFTs in and out. And we have this expectation model that takes place. Now we've got all this really exhaustive reporting. We say, look, if players perform like this, we will do an amazing job of hitting that equilibrium of not too much brawl, not too little brawl, not too much secondary market content, not too little secondary market content. And there's this constant balancing act of the tension between kind of tokens and NFT and player base. So we've modeled that out and we have all this reporting. So now what we said is, okay, look, we're going to limit the number of players on day one to like 1,000. And how are they going to perform relative to our model? And most game companies are like, oh, you know what? Let's get as many people out there. Let's sell as many packs as we can. Let's make this a huge cultural event. And let's do all these things. And all of a sudden their economy is out of balance and their token plummets or does things that aren't healthy. And their community has this expectation. And it's hard to walk that back, right? It's hard to unwind that. So what we're saying is like, look, we have this tight game. We have this tight audience. We have these tight set of metrics that we're measuring. And as they perform relative to a healthy kind of, equilibrium, which we're trying to strike, we will, we have levers that we can pull that can loosen things up or tighten things up relative to the performance before the audience explodes. And make no mistake about it, we want this to be a massive game. We want this to be the biggest blockchain game in the world. That is our goal and that is our intent. Is that on day 30 or day 90 or day 180 is to be determined. But we have this large goal of being the number one blockchain game in the world. We think the way we're doing it is very kind of pragmatic and structured and thoughtful. And we're not going to bow to the pressures of, you need to put more packs on the market to sell, and you need to tell us exactly how many brawl I'm going to earn on day one, and on and on and on, which is what people want. When in reality, getting those kind of numbers, those kind of figures, those kind of things are actually really unhealthy. And people ask for it because they've gotten it in the past, but we actually don't think it serves our larger purpose of building a game that can grow steadily over time. And so that's kind of how we see the world and how we think we can, grow this consistently without, losing control of the things that allow us to grow, week over week and month over month.
That I think you hit the nail on a lot of top aspects there. I mean, a lot of people want to plan everything out from the start, and for me, I enjoy discovering aspects as we go, and that is, I guess, part of me and part of being a gamer myself. It's it's fun to learn, it's fun to explore and see what happens. And how are you?
I'm going to cut you off for a second because you're going to love this. We were in a leadership call of all the executive staff on at Wax yesterday, and there were some people saying, gee, there's a lot of potential challenges. The community wants to know the numbers, and they want to know this, they want to know that. And somebody said, don't worry, within 3 hours of the game being live, Anders will have a 5-hour video breaking down every single aspect of this game, the economy, the yield, the this, the that. So Anders has got it. So let's all just relax. And people are like, oh yeah, good, Anders is on top of it. Like, there's literally, we know that about you, but we also know that about the community. Right? Yeah. Like, we know that the noisy minority that wants to know every single thing, is just as many people who want to discover that on their own. It's about the journey, not the destination. Just kind of the last point I'll make on the kind of what are the exact numbers kind of per brawl and this, that, and so like, people are asking for things that they actually can be hurtful. Like, if you don't know the value of that, just getting a number in abstract actually isn't helpful. So if I said, as an example, a common brawler with a common piece of gear, would get 200 brawl per match. You're like, oh, that's great. Well, is it? Because you don't know what brawl is worth. Or a legendary brawler with a legendary piece of gear has a 30% gold NFT drop rate. Oh, that's great. Well, is it? Because we don't know what the value of gold is. So they ask for all these things because they want that information, but out of context, it actually can be hurtful, because then they're trying to do all this math of, well, brawl will be worth this, so therefore, and they go down this rabbit hole of this is why I should invest, when they actually don't have that ability to do the calculus with any level of sort of comprehensive understanding of what they're actually trying to solve for.
Yeah, for sure. And about the numbers, I'm sure that will happen, and I will request some help from people in the community. we have a few small groups where we usually discuss new projects and what is happening, their updates, and then we break down different parts of the game and ask questions, and we come forward with sometimes solutions, sometimes just more questions, which is all good. And
yeah, look, we put out a kind of an economy philosophy or economy overview on Monday for people to understand how we sort of saw the world a little bit differently. We try to kind of foreshadow a lot of these things as to why we're not doing what we're doing, or why we are doing what we are doing. And one of the things that's really differentiated that we always wanted to say to the community is that there is no existing meta that we are going to observe that you have observed before, right? So the thought was, well, just get as many brawlers as you can, as fast as you can, and that's how you win. When in reality, we've created this nice duality in the market, right? Where the low-end common, Scotty Wide-Eye, holders with kind of brass knuckles, which is a common piece of equipment or gear that you can use. That's what I have. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible on the gold output. It really, really is. It's like more than 2 times what a legendary brawler with a steel chair has. Like, people just think, well, wait a minute. Well, why is that? I've got the best guy. Well, because we actually want there to be value if you're a common holder, right? Which is kind of the obvious thing. And the things that the legendary owners are going to do, they're going to be really gold pinched early and often. And so they're going to have to go to the secondary market, and they're actually relying on the common brawlers, which is really, really nice. Now, the common brawlers don't make very much brawl at all, but the legendary brawlers do. So you have this nice back and forth. And again, we talked about the model that we built. Like, we looked at what those pinch points are, and we looked at what the gold output was. And like, there's a real healthy economy for these Scotty Wide-Eye brass knuckle owners. There really, really is. Now, at some point, it becomes limiting, but there's an early and often reason for them to buy and engage that way. Now, the legendary guys can go, great, I'm just going to go craft a Scotty Wide-Eye, but then all of a sudden their growth to growing their brawl, which is really such a powerful thing, is now limited and gated. So we're giving you interesting trade-offs where the meta is not known. It's going to be a topic of discussion. And it's so funny to me in chat, in Discord, and shout out to everybody on Discord if you're watching. Hi. People are like, oh, I only got a Scotty Wide, or I only got a brass knuckles. That's terrible. I'm like, because you assume that having common assets is a terrible thing, when in reality, we actually want to make it so it feels like a win for you too. And at what point do you change and alter your path depends on what your individual goals are. So having these kind of these problems that don't have exact answers to them or known answers, we actually think adds a lot of mystery and a lot of intrigue and a lot of interest to the player. You know, we're playing hard to get a little bit, if you will. It's like, and there's going to be a lot of theory crafting and arguing about like, well, this is what your construct should be. No, it should be this. No, it should be that. And guess what? Everybody's kind of right, depending on what your perspective is. And there is no right answer. And we think that's a wonderful, wonderful place to be from a game community, a game economy, the tension between the sort of the stratifications. We think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And we'll see how it plays out. And if it works, we'll double down on it. If it doesn't, we'll fix it.
Yeah, we just fix it. It's not always a super simple thing to fix, but it
Right.
really does sound like you guys have put some time and thought into how to balance the different aspects of this game. And just for someone watching this and they don't really know much about the items, they don't really understand what you mean, the legendary and common. So let's break down. We have how many different type of NFTs do we have, and how many rarities of these NFTs?
Yeah, so we have 3 rings, we have 5 pieces of gear, and we have 5 brawlers. And the brawlers and the gear are the standard kind of gaming construct of, you know, common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. We don't have a mythic, which, you know, some games do. We just have those 5 conventions. And on the ring side, we have a common ring, a rare ring, and a legendary ring. We didn't think there was enough reason to have delineation in the slots to have an uncommon ring and an epic ring. So we thought those 3 points actually felt pretty good. And it really is the thing that we've done that's really, really interesting. We published a report about 10 days ago, is we have this whole idea of around sort of durability. And, you know, items that have persistence that can be traded are the death of games. And it's kind of always been that way. And a lot of people, we think, don't appreciate that the way that we do. You know, we go on to, you know, Farmer's World, which is the gold standard on wax, is incredible, but there's like 104,000, you know, chainsaws to be bought, and it's not helping anybody. And so the idea of, you know, kind of things expiring or wearing out and having to recharge them or replace them is a really, really powerful thing. And how often you replace them, we can change, and how many uses they have, we can change, and the recipe cost for them, we can change. So again, we have all these controls in place to try to make sure that the supply and demand of these things is very much done in a healthy way. And look, that's really important too. I think the thing that I maybe glossed over is one of the things that we wanted to really illustrate to the community is that this is a player participation model. You know, we have nearly 29,000 people in our Discord, and yet we've got 1,000 Brawler NFTs that are going to be in the market on day one. And we actually could have sold, you know, 10 times the number of packs. We could have sold the packs for way more money. Like, this could have been a cash grab, but it wasn't. And that's a reflection of the fact that we need the players to be our producers. We really do. Like, they don't win, we don't win. It is literally that simple. And we can't illustrate that point more than having, you know, very, very few assets that we're actually selling. We need the players to sell. We need them to create Brawl. We need them to create NFTs. We need them to create gold. We need them to sell those things. Now, here's the reality. They may choose not to sell any of those things. They may hodl them the whole time themselves. And then when we have to go back and say, okay, well, at this point, we thought this many players would be in, so therefore maybe we do another pack sale. But we don't want to. We actually want the players to create content for other players. That is absolutely the paradigm and the balance that we're trying to strike. So we need them to be our producers in the worst way possible. That is our main interest here. And the larger kind of point to all of this is that our interests are aligned because our risk is aligned. Like, if they don't sell and produce and have a positive experience, then we don't have any positive experiences either. So we need them to perform for us to perform.
Yeah, and you nailed it. That is that's essentially what NFTs and play to earn games should be. It is a relationship between the players and what they can create and the game creators. And that is not always reflected in the sales or the respect towards the adopters of the game or the ecosystem or the activity, and some statements that has been made later gets pulled back and changed, and that hurts those that believed in the statement from the start. And there's a lot of bad examples, but there's also good examples in the play to earn game so far. It's a young market, a lot of people testing ideas and testing ways of doing it, I guess.
Yeah, look, and I think this illustrates a really important point is that, Wax is a really well-financed company and it's a very mature development set of individuals, right? Like I've been doing this for a long time. The programmers on this game are really, really savvy programmers. This is not a team of, kind of three people who grew up as childhood friends operating out of the garage and, hey, play this. And there's plenty of space and, no love lost for those guys. God bless you. I love that. But what we're saying is, look, we have some things at our disposal that actually help us, right? We have an experienced team. We're well-financed. We don't have to do an ICO necessarily, right? We don't have to do a land sale on this game. And that's not to disparage those who do. Like we have these things at our disposal, and that allows us to operate and think about things, a little bit differently. And so I think it's really important for players to understand that, don't compare us to the other developers who have come before us because we're not, under maybe the same kind of pressures or constraints that they are. We have a lot more freedom and flexibility to be successful. And so we're going to think and operate differently because our rules of engagement are different.
Yeah, that's a great aspect. It makes life easier when you are not really stressed about paying all the bills. When you have some funds and you have a duration, a long roadmap, and you can actually relax, be a little bit relaxed and build on top of that. And that is awesome. And you have mentioned that players will be able to craft, or can they craft all types of items, all rarities? Are they using both the gold and the brawl token? Is there any type of information here you can release?
Yeah, of course. I can tell you everything. We get this question a lot, and we always say things that are simple to explain are simple to understand. So the reality is, if you want something in the game, you can craft it, and all it takes is brawl, which is our token, and our gold, which is a sellable NFT. And the only thing that you cannot craft is a legendary one-of-one brawler, right? But everything else in the game is fair game, and so you have free will, and you get brawl from every single brawl match that you take part in, and you get the chance of a gold NFT drop in every single match that you get. And so it's all there for you. It's your decision, it's your choice, and which path you go down is up to you. But everything in the game, absent the legendary one-of-ones, are craftable.
That's awesome. And like what I understand, the launch of Blockchain Brawlers will be a early version of the game. What will exist then, and what is the plan on the coming months after?
Oh, it's a great question. It's going to sound a little bit maybe counterintuitive, but the worst version of this game you're going to play is what we put out on day one. It's going to be the worst version because every day it's going to get a little better. And so, and I'm not going to dodge the question necessarily, but a lot of what we do from a roadmap and a content and a feature standpoint all depends on how the players engage. As we've said, we have kind of these 20 plus kind of metrics that look at reporting. So, are players really into crafting? Are they really into brawling? Are they really into things that drive certain behaviors that we didn't anticipate? We'll go where those signals take us, right? So we'll look at the player behaviors, the ones that are healthy, and we'll double down on those things. But along the way, we also have ideas of big kind of meta features like PvP is natural, it's obvious. Tag team, it's natural, it's obvious. We said in our economy report that we put out that we're going to have kind of these big PvP competitions are going to allow for unique belts and massive brawl giveaways, and there's all these things, and so. And that's really tied to how do we fight this whole notion of I don't write a script. I play as a real player and I'm not a bot. So how can I not keep from falling behind because bots are the scourge of the environment? It's like, well, they're not, right? Like bots are unfortunate in a lot of regards, but know that it's an impossible fight to fight. But what we're doing to the community, what we're saying is like, look, in the roadmap, there are a set of features and functionality that lend to real appeal and real growth and real progression that only a human can do. Yeah. And a lot of that is tied to human decision making, right? And so it's not this algorithmic thing like, if I just do this, in a rote way over a certain amount of time, I get way ahead and I can never be caught. It's like, look, the ultimate payout of this game is, I've come in, I play a PvP contest. It's against the entire world of brawlers. It gets televised, it gets live streamed. There's a custom belt. We write about it on our website. We make, there's this whole thought experiment that we're going through, taking our Brawlers universe and actually writing it like, a professional broadcast. Like we have, baby faces and heels, and we write up individual community members and what they did and how they did it, and make it feel like there's this whole narrative people are now investing in tied to these PvP events. So we want to make it feel much bigger than what that day one experience wants to be. And what that is exactly is all to be determined. But we think there's a real kind of, like I said, human decision-making tied to PvP, where we give people the ability to really feel good about their time and engagement. Like that's really the thing I think that for me, when I think about my gaming experiences, and I think about like literally the cringe moment of all cringe moments is time in game on World of Warcraft. Nobody wants to click that button, but yet you're secretly morbidly curious of, God, what is it? Do I really want to know? And your mouse is hovering. You're like, do I want to see it? I don't want to see it. And then you close, and then you go, we want that to actually be seen as a really good thing. Like, oh, wow, I've invested all this time, and now my time and my engagement has been monetized in a positive way. Or it's been rewarded. Monetizing, I don't want to say there's any guarantees, but there's a recognition of, if you've invested your free time with us, we want you to feel like that was time well spent. Right. And so that's kind of always in the back of our minds. The notion of, I've got something ridiculous like 17,000 games of League of Legends played over the last 12 years. It's signs of an adulthood poorly spent, maybe. But knowing that I could then maybe take those skins or take my characters that I've advanced to certain mastery levels and then monetize those in the secondary market is so powerful. If you don't understand that paradigm, that sea change, then you're really not paying attention. That's the way the world is going. And, from our perspective, get in, learn, figure out what those things are that work sooner rather than later. Be that trailblazer, be that market leader, and be the singular winner of really big companies wanting to understand blockchain. Like that's what we're all about. So,
yeah, and and that's awesome. And like you're not alone when you're doing this. And the Wax team is a big team. How many in that team are dedicated towards blockchain brawlers at this stage?
Yeah, so we've got, it's really interesting. So we're in what's called build mode, and there's a different team or a different set of people for live ops mode because it's a different set of disciplines. So the build team is about 20 people, a combination of engineers, marketing people, product people, community managers, operations folks. And having that full, robust team and understanding every single aspect of launching a game successfully is really, really important. And then once you get into the live ops side, the dynamics of the team change. You go from project manager to product manager. And, the live ops gets, you start running A/B tests, and you start looking at different cohorts, and all these things that you do to make sure that thing, operates differently. So they're a little bit different disciplines, but the team is very robust and very full. It's not like it's 20 people and then let's just see what happens. It's like, no, there's this very intentional path of let's get to the MVP, let's launch it, let's monitor it, and then let's go from there. And Wax Studios itself is about 100 folks. On the gaming side, it's because we do have other games in development. It's closer to 35, 40 people, something like that. Some games are internally developed, some games are third-party developed, but it's really as a company, we're really going at this full bore.
So we can expect more things to happen, and this will be a question that we maybe you don't have the answer to. You said that you're developing many games. Do you have some idea for making them connected in some kind of, I don't know if we should call it a metaverse? That's just a fancy term, but some way for users to feel like they are part of one ecosystem.
Yeah, there's about 16 different metaverse jokes I could make here. I'm going to save you the trouble of sitting through my poor sense of humor. The short answer is when we build games, we don't build them with the idea of trying to find commercial success. We want to actually understand the player. We want to move the art form forward. So one of the things that's going to sound maybe silly in blockchain brawlers that we're really, really leaning into heavily is we are leaning into the onboarding experience and what that player UI UX wants to be. We find that a lot of times the industry is guilty of talking to itself. We say, hey, deposit this from your wallet or withdraw this. And what's the deflation? Like it's these very banking style terms instead of a game. Right. And so we want to talk to these players, even if they're not traditional gamers. We don't talk to them like they're traditional gamers, because traditional gaming language is actually, really well intended and is really thoughtful and is really intuitive. And so we don't use terms like, withdraw and deposit. We use things like activate and heal or recharge or, level up, things that are very much sort of gaming oriented. But that onboarding flow of how you play and why you play, and having that context sensitivity to what they have or what they don't have, and then saying, look, you're blocked here or you're blocked there, or we recommend this or we recommend that, is something that we're really leaning into. A lot of the games I play, you could fail to fetch or, stack overflow and all these bizarre error messages that, programmers understand what they are. But how do we take that, knowing that these things can exist, and then how do we put it through a lens of a player like, oh, I need more CPU. And how do I do that? Oh, there's a prompt up screen to click that. Oh, it automatically opens up, my resource center. And having that level of thought through all the way through end to end, we think is going to be a really, really good thing, because people are already nervous about blockchain gaming in general, security concerns, and I don't understand this. And when you talk to them in a dialect that's just slightly off, that triggers that security issue. But we know that people, from a convenience standpoint, will engage longer and have more faith in things that work intuitively for them, then they're going to engage more. And that's why if you look at the Wax Cloud wallet, it's this very Web 2.0 experience, right? Like lots of single sign-on, like, oh, I click it, I sign up, I see a dashboard, I see like things that they're used to, right? And that's why the Wax Cloud wallet has over 12 million unique wallet holders, to this day, which is a real testament to that product as a standalone product. And so every time that we put forth a product, to answer your question, I'm not trying to dodge your question, is there's this intention of how are we moving the art form forward, or how are we expanding the audience, and what are we learning, and what are we giving back? So I think there's this real temptation of, hey, tell me about all the great games and all the money you're going to make. We don't think about it that way. We're like, how can we gain larger adoption and learn things to give a better player experience, to grow that top of that funnel as large as it can possibly be? It shouldn't be like, oh, you have to buy a plot of land. It's like Sandbox and I spent, $10,000. Like, that's a lot of friction. That's a lot for people to get over. So we're trying to figure out this stratification of experiences that kind of, serve those needs and, rip down those barriers to entry for a lot of players.
Yeah, and the language that you touched a lot of points there, but the language of blockchain is very complicated. You need to get educated before you can even do anything.
Sure.
And that's like why I'm creating my academy, to try to educate people and try to I try to break down complex things into more easily understandable words, which is not always possible, because you also need to reference the technical terms and everything.
Of course.
But I really think that it's healthy to build a game which is focused on game first, experience first, and there's a blockchain in the background. That's how it should be, and that's where it has to go.
Yeah, we used to do that a lot in the classic console days. We'd get a license and we're like, some publishing companies, which shall remain nameless, really relied heavily on the license to do the heavy lifting. Like, oh, we don't have to be creative, or we don't have to spend a lot of marketing because the license will drive all those things. We always took the mindset, whether it was, EA or THQ or Disney or anywhere else I was, that the game, like, at its core has to be great. Like, let's just start with that. If it happens to be licensed, terrific. We see the same thing too. Like, and we're not, so arrogant to not recognize when that happens. Like, if you look at Skyweaver, which is a game I think that we all hold in really high regard, like, that's a great game objectively, and there's no two ways about it. And they've done such a wonderful thing in making this really well produced, really thoughtful, fun experience. It happens to be on the blockchain. Like, that thinking permeates throughout kind of every kind of fiber of our being as well. Like, we want our game to be great and enjoyable, and we want the enjoyment to be obvious. We don't want you to have to hunt for it. It's like, oh wow, this is really fun. They thought of this, which I didn't even contemplate. Like, that's the other nice thing I think that we do, is that we give people things that they didn't even know that they wanted, right? And so having things here or there, and again, this whole notion of common brawler versus legendary, they didn't expect that. And they're like, oh, wow. And so if you saw the reaction online, you feel like, yeah, the legendary owners are going to bow down to us. The Scotty Wide-Eye army is going to be amazing, and on and on and on. And you know what? They're right. They didn't expect that. But look at the joy that it brought them. But it also didn't, their joy didn't mean it hurt the legendary holders. Like, okay, we see the rules. We understand the tension. Good on you, Wax. So
yeah, that's great. And like, the first thing we heard about blockchain brawlers for most people is that, well, it's a wrestling theme, and also it's Wax and Binance. So how is it gonna play out with two different blockchains? You have NFTs on Binance, you have NFTs on Wax. You're building a bridge. in your wallet you can add the Binance wallet and things like that. What happens there, and what's the plan forward?
Yeah, look, we built the bridge and we're testing it and it works. And it's just not quite ready for prime time yet, but this is not a pipe dream. Like someday we made an announcement last night. Before the game is live, the Binance bridge will be open. And it really is a reflection of our desire to have as much NFT liquidity in the world. Like we know that liquidity, whether it's, it doesn't really matter what you're doing, like liquidity is a very good thing. And so we want to make sure liquidity exists everywhere it can. And our friends at Binance sort of came to us, and so we said, look, let's launch an auction. Let's see how this goes. And what do you think about that? And they were willing to test and learn with us. And now the test was amazingly successful. And so, look for more things like that in the future to be determined. But the experience for the player today is you bought an NFT on Binance for Wax Games. You can bring it in, you can bridge it. At that time, we'll lock the Binance NFT, but we'll create a duplicate that then you can bring into Wax, and you can play and you can earn, you can do all those things. And then if you want to sell it, then you can take it back, bridge it back into Binance, and then sell it on a Binance marketplace or sell it on a Wax marketplace. The whole idea is now as a creator, you have way more marketplaces, aka way more liquidity to sell your asset, to get the value out of it that you want to get. And we think that kind of max liquidity should be a goal of everybody. So the Binance chain is a microcosm of that belief, or a small kind of example. And we're going to try to do that everywhere we possibly can in the future. Where and when and what is to be determined. But we think that overarching philosophy of max liquidity for the player, for the creator, is a really, really good thing. We're going to continue to do that everywhere it makes sense.
And on Binance now we have the legendary NFTs, and this sounds like there will be a two-way street for NFTs to move back and forward, so you can move commons over to Binance and so forth. So that's very good. And then I'm gonna take you didn't say it, but I guess that we will also have teleport for tokens and things like that. Since NFTs can be teleported, I assume that we will also have it for the tokens. So that's very nice.
You did not say it. I'm not going to comment on it. We have to be unbelievably quiet and careful when it comes to tokens and whatnot. We have disclosed that obviously we're going to be on Alcor. I think that's a given and that's understood. Beyond that, the rules and regulations tied to the Security Exchange Commission, we just have to be guarded with that until things are final and are demonstrable. So I'm being intentionally vague from a regulatory standpoint, not because I don't want you to know what our plans are, or I'm trying to give you. So
it's a yes. I'm not gonna. You don't have to answer that. It's okay. But yeah, the regulatory aspect is always horrible for everything we do. But that's because it's new and exciting, and we don't really know what will happen in the future. We have some countries that have issues with play-to-earn games, and most of the countries do not have any yay or nay statements so far. What do you think will happen with let's say South Korea, if you have an opinion on their play-to-earn market and everything, or the rest of the world?
Yeah, it's really funny. It's so much of gaming's growth has come out of South Korea. The first ever esports really was StarCraft, televised on TV, and Bill Roper from Blizzard would go there, and he was a huge celebrity, and that was a whole thing, right? And so all the advances in a lot of the kind of the multiplayer gaming and the evolution of competition and people being connected happened there. It's kudos to them. I will say this is that, because you can also lump, I think, Apple and Google into the same category potentially, there's this natural, we need to save our audience from the predatory behaviors that exist in kind of Web3, right? Whether it's scams, it's, stealing wallets, it's things of that nature. It's, you see it all the time. I think that at some point the industry will self-correct and will grow, and these things will be understood. And right now, the reaction you're seeing kind of on a global basis or on a company basis like Apple is because we don't know, the answer is going to be no. And until we get comfort and security and clarity around kind of what the world looks like, we're going to stay on the sidelines. Big publishers in the gaming space, the exact same thing. They're going to be the last to adopt. And so anytime you see hesitation, I think it's born out of insecurity and fear, and wanting to the default position is, I don't want to take the risk, so I'm going to protect everything by saying no across the board. And at some point that will change. Different velocities for different groups, but yeah, I think that blockchain and Web3 related gaming kind of over the course of the next 3 to 4 years is just so understood that this is what this is and this is why this is. Alex Ohanian said famously on a Reddit post, in 5 years there'll be no game without a blockchain component. I think he's absolutely right. I think that it'll be a hybrid. I don't think it'll be exclusively pay to earn, but I think it'll be a very important part of, okay, I play this game from a free to play standpoint or a downloadable content standpoint, but here's my pay to earn or pay and earn piece of that, which I can choose to engage in or not. And I can have fun over here not doing that at all, or I can go really deep here. The choice is up to me, but I have that option. I think that's where the world is going kind of over the next 5 years. Somebody will figure out a really nice North Star as to what that paradigm wants to be. And everybody's like, oh, do that. And then you'll see that everybody should go over here and have their version of whatever that is.
Yeah, and I think you're correct. And also on the regulatory side, if you look at a lot of the play to earn games that has been here for the last few years, they don't look too great from the outside. If you just look at them and try to see what happens, the tokenomic models are not sustainable. You can see that people will get hurt. The question is not if, it's when. And of course that's scary, and they want to protect people, and they don't look further into it, so they just say no.
And that's what I think we're trying to do with blockchain brawlers and all the games we do candidly is like, look, this is how this should be modeled, and this is what we believe to be true. And you do want to make sure that you're trying to protect your players, and you're trying to protect the time and the energy, and you want this to be a safe space for them, and whatever that definition you use to define safe space. And so we're super, super mindful of that, and we don't have all the answers, but to know that we're looking at it and we're operating in that regard should give people peace of mind and comfort. Like, there's no aspect of this product that we haven't thought through in an exhausting way, and if we haven't told somebody something, it's because we've decided it's not healthy for them or for the community or for the product. And so I think people just go, oh, they're not doing this and that, they must not be very good at this. Like, no, we've thought about that. Like, it's our job. Like, we live, sleep, eat, and breathe this every minute of every day, all the time. So no, there's a reason if you don't hear us talk about it or mention it. We're trying to save you from yourself potentially.
And on that topic of not disclosing things, where do you see the game in 6 months? If you just guess.
Oh, you want to pin me down? Great question. Look, I think that 6 months from now, this game has a really robust and thriving audience, and a really robust and thriving kind of economy driven by a really robust and thriving but well monitored secondary market, whether it's token levels, token pricing, or it's kind of NFT availability. Again, the idea is to bring players on slowly when there's content for them to buy, to engage with, and making sure that we are always looking at what are those equilibriums in terms of supply and demand is something that's really, really important. And you go through this, and people who balance economies and currencies and inventories for a living, you get a real appreciation for them, because this is not easy. If this is easy, it would have been done already, and the formula would exist, and you just do what somebody else did. So I think in 6 months, we have a thriving game with a thriving marketplace and a roadmap that people see the things that we've built since day one are really, really healthy to put the power in the hands of the player and their individual decision-making. That is my hope. That is my belief. And that's where I think we'll get to.
And on the roadmap part, so I think we are in phase 3 right now on your website. Yeah, that should be let the game begin, which is Q1 22.
Yeah.
And it's about 1 month left of Q1. Do we have any open or hidden deadline or expectation when you hope to have this first bad experience of blockchain brawlers?
So let's be clear. I didn't say bad experience. I said the worst version of it, which I still think is going to be an incredible experience. I think it's going to be an amazing experience. It's just going to be people like, is that it? It's like, well, that's it today, but tomorrow's going to be better, and the next day, and on and on and on. So let me be clear about that. You said a month ago, and I glanced up at my calendar. I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, oh, it's February 16th. Okay.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Whew, that's better. Yeah, look, we've always said this is Q1. We intend this to be Q1. We're going to launch it under a beta tag. I think that's been very clear kind of from early on. And that's to, manage people's expectations. This is not a full-blown game. This is not, something that has, 75 different features. This does, a few things really, really well that we're going to build on. We're not going to try to boil the ocean. We're going to try to take a handful of things and execute them like crazy and create that foundation. So when we do add features and functionality, it's done from a mindset of, well, what didn't work well previously, or what should be messaged better, to what was messaged really well, what worked really well, and let's lean into what those wins are. And so, in terms of kind of launch dates and so forth, I still very much believe this is a Q1 title. I believe that with, all my heart. The team is working towards that. They're progressing towards that. And again, we're going to give content updates and gameplay updates through the various social channels, all the way up until the day it goes live. And so I think we're on track for that roadmap, to answer your question.
That's very nice. And I think I got more of a answer there than I expected, so that's nice. And
oh, was I giving away too much? Maybe we can fix this in editing. I wish it wasn't live. Okay.
So while on giving away too much, so we have you have a collaboration with Ric Flair. That's yes. Announced. That's given. There are a lot more famous wrestlers, and people are asking, do we have any more planned collaborations? Are you talking with more people? Is this something you can disclose, or is everything hidden and waiting for the future?
Look, I think it's a pretty simple and obvious response, is that if Ric Flair turns out to be a success, we'll do it as many times as we can, as often as we can. The answer is we actually don't know how it's going to perform. We have an upcoming, NFT pack sale, which we're going to announce the details of tomorrow. We're going to announce pricing. We're going to announce numbers. We're going to announce the details of what each Ric Flair is going to be. I actually think it's really super compelling. And we'll have to see how the audience responds to that. We'll have to see how the secondary market responds to that. We'll have to see how all these things go. Like, if it's a massive failure, which I don't think it'd be, I just think it's gonna be an amazing failure. So if you're kind of, kind of putting me under the gun, I'd say, look for more of that. But until the audience responds, it's to be determined. And that's always been our answer. And that's the right answer. The Ric Flair kind of pack sale, by the way, is going to be absolutely incredible. We can't wait for people to see the announcement on the details tomorrow. I'll tell you this, is that I've seen all of the Ric Flair one-of-ones. Not one-of-ones. I guess it is a Ric Flair one-of-one, even though it's all Ric Flairs. Every single Ric Flair is unique. So different robe, different belt, different hairstyle, different everything, different trunks, different, you name it. Like, there's 100 unique Ric Flairs. And that in of itself is a really compelling thing. Like, some of the visuals are just so stunning. And yet, I don't know what the value is of each of those things to individuals. I know what it is to me, but I don't know what it is to the collective group. And so we'll see how that does. So while these aren't one-of-ones like, Iron Pride or things of that ilk, these are unique unto themselves. And we'll have to see what the value and the appeal of those are to the community.
That's an awesome answer. And on the unique 100, we didn't really dig into skins. So all of the wide eyes, they look the same, they feel the same, but there is something coming for that. So what are skins, and how do we get them?
Gosh, did I say that? Did I ever disclose that anywhere?
I don't know.
Well, look, here's the reality, right? Is that, we are, Upskins is kind of the early birth of this company, and we understand the value of the skins business. Like I said, my sort of love of League of Legends and CSGO and whatnot, like, skins is very much a part of gaming, and we know that, right? And we play Clash of Clans and Clash Royale. We see skins are everywhere, even where it doesn't make sense. And so I'd be foolish to tell you skins are never a part of this, and I'd be foolish to tell you that we're not trying to figure out ways to differentiate, all the different Scotty White Eyes from one another. So I would only ask that you stay tuned. We'll have an announcement, soon about, plans around what that wants to be and why that is. And I promise you, it's going to be really well received news, and it's going to be very community friendly, I believe.
That's very nice. And to be frank, we have broken down a lot of this game, and I think that was a nice way to summarize what we have spoken about so far, that people have something to look forward to. We talked about your history, blockchain brawlers, what everything is. Is there something that we have not discussed so far that you really feel like, hey, we need to mention this, or people should keep their eyes open for something?
No, look, I guess the thing that we want to get across, if it's not really clear, is that we ask people to give us the benefit of the doubt. Like, we know that rug pulls have happened. We don't want there to be a rug pull. We know that people have gotten kind of overpromised and underdelivered in other cases. We don't want that to be us. We want you to know that we're a very well-intended group. We hear you, we see you, we feel your pain, we understand. We're not, deaf to it. just because we don't respond to every single whim of somebody in a chat room doesn't mean that we didn't hear you. It just meant that we didn't think that was best for the overall game. So know that we have the players' interest at heart, not our own, because like I said, we're aligned. And so, don't think that we're trying to be anything other than what is best for the players. And that's all I ask, is give us the benefit of the doubt and let us prove to you kind of through our actions over time. Because again, actions speak louder than words. Let's show you that we mean that, and give us a chance to really perform. And then you can make, a judgment about whether we're the good guys or the bad guys. I think you'll find 99 times out of 100, we're the good guys. And not only we're the good guys, we're the really good guys. And so, just, have faith and patience. At some point, your patience will hopefully be rewarded. And for some people that's immediately, and some people that's eventually. So. And
one last question then. Do you own NFTs yourself?
I do. I absolutely do. 100%.
100%. All of them.
No, 100% I own them. Guess where I got them?
On Wax.
I got them on the secondary market.
Nice.
And why did I get them on the secondary market? Because I didn't make the whitelists. Look, that's the difference. This is an important distinction. Like, people think like, the developers and they're out for themselves and something. No, that's not true. Like, I signed up for the first whitelist just like everybody else did. I signed up for the second whitelist just like everybody else did. I signed up for the Ric Flair whitelist just like everybody else did. I didn't make the first whitelist, the second whitelist. I don't expect to make the Ric Flair whitelist, but I want to play. And why do I want to play? And why do I want to get Scotty? Because I've seen how Scotty is modeled, and Scotty is great for exactly how we intended him. So I said, I'm not going to miss out on this. So with my own personal money, I went to the secondary market and bought a couple of Scotty White Eyes.
Very nice. I did the same. I was lucky enough to hit the first whitelist, and then I didn't get the second one, and I went on the market and bought a second pack.
Yeah, I think people think like, the developers, they play games and they hook themselves up. I could have easily said, put me on the whitelist no matter what. I don't care. If not, you're fired. I didn't. I said, let me be a consumer. Let me live through this experience just like they are. Let me feel the highs and the lows. Let me look at the wallet list. Let me do a Control F and search on my wallet address. And it wasn't, I'm like, oh man. And I went back to the community. I said, yeah, I didn't get on either. And they're like, wow, how did you not get on? I'm like, because I didn't ask to be put on. I went through just like you did. Like, we are players. We are gamers. We live this like they live it. It's not like we sit on, somebody the other day on Discord said, oh, it must be nice sitting in your ivory tower. I'm like, oh, you mean in my mom's basement? And I said, I'm kidding. I actually don't live with my mom in her basement, at least as far as you can tell with these surroundings. But
you live with the bird on the painting.
Yeah, look, we eat our own dog food, right? Like, that's really, really important for us to do. And so, when we do things like we bought a pack early before the sale went live to see what that pack flow was like. We want to always test to make sure when it's open to them, they get a smooth, error-free experience. And that doesn't always work, but the intention is very, very much in the right place. So yeah, I do have a couple Scotties. I'm going to be in there brawling like everybody else. I know there's some questions or not confusion around kind of rings and so forth, how it works. Just really quickly, if you have a common ring, it's got one slot. You can put one brawler in there, and that slot after you've brawled is locked on a cooldown. That brawler is locked on a cooldown, so you can't quit swapping people out continually. If you have a rare ring, there's 4 slots. You can have 4 different brawlers that earn at 4 different levels if there are 4 different rarities with 4 different pieces of gear. And that has a certain number of uses. And then a legendary ring, up to 8 brawlers at once. Again, the slots can be on different cooldowns if you start them at different times. It's very much this really kind of simple to understand experience. And I never get the chance to, I never want to miss the chance to explain to people just how simple it is to interact and use the game and perform and have a good time.
And that's awesome. And a lot of hype and information there at the end, which is awesome. Exciting. And a lot of the big games, like I don't know what we should call them, old games that are not play to earn. One of the big issues with a lot of them is that the developers do not play the game. I'm very happy to see that you want to do that, because that is the best way to speed up changes and improve on the experience for everyone, if those that build it also use it.
Yeah, Anders, I'll tell you, I've heard that my entire career, and I've never understood it. Like, if you don't play these games, why are you in this industry? Like, this to me is such a, look, I know I say a lot and I speak really quickly, and I don't always, but when you talk to me about something that I have a passion for, that I'm excited about, it's so innate in me. I can't help myself. I am so in love with what I get to do on a daily basis. And it's not always, sort of rainbows and unicorns, but it's just the most amazing industry and career to be a part of. And if you don't get joy from what you're putting on the screen, how do you expect others to experience that joy as well? Like, you have to start start with yourself, right? That doesn't mean you build things just for you, but it means you have to really understand and appreciate what you're doing. And the only way to do that a lot of times is sit in there and play and consume and go through those same funnels and onboarding that everybody else goes through. And then you're like, wow, why do we do this? This is really terrible. If you don't do that, then you don't know. You don't have that frame of reference.
Yep.
And that frame of reference is so unbelievably important. And the temptation that I always had early in my career is like, I'm doing really poorly at performing in this game, so let's change the variables so my play style works best for me. That's why they never let me near a League of Legends character tuning sheet ever, because it would all be Twitch all the time, and he'd be so OP, and I'd never let him get nerfed, and that would be just the best for me. It'd be boring at some point, but that's what I would do. Like, I'm so self-interested, but you learn that you can't be self-interested, right? You have to look at kind of the analytics of performance of these individual things and do what's best and healthiest for the game. And a lot of times the only way you do that, if you're in the trenches playing just like everybody else is, experiencing that, feeling that pain, right? So that's probably why I spend, a decent amount of time in Discord, is because I want to have that connection. I want, not only do I want to hear the players, but I want them to know that they're being heard. Right. I want them to know that the things that they say, first of all, sometimes it's good to stop these runaway rumors of fudding and, things that are just baseless. And that's never good. But, our community does actually a great job of being really well educated and kind of policing this for us. So I don't have to be there every minute of every day. I can actually go through what my day job is, which is actually build this product and bring it to market in the best way possible. So, yeah, a lot of players, a lot of developers and people not playing their games, I've never understood. I mean, why else are you in this job other than to enjoy the fruits of your labor?
Man, yeah, amen to that. I think that's awesome. And I think we passed an hour, so I think it's time to. I have a friend request coming up. Oh, it didn't show. Nice. I had a pop up there for a moment on my screen. But I'm gonna thank you for coming on. I'm so grateful for this chat. I would love to have you on again later when game is released and we have started to see the fine tuning that you guys are doing and what that leads to. Yeah,
Anders, thank you for giving me the time and the platform to speak about what we're doing. We're super proud of it. And, buddy, anytime, any place, ask me, I'll make myself available for you. I promise you that.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for watching. Links to Blockchain Brawlers in the description, and everything else is as usual. Hit that like button, share this, and have a good one.
A Bitcoin bull is all I got left. Sold my clothes, gold no less. Was a suckling, hard hands. This man stronger than the average man. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pen. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pen. I'm not the bubble, I'm the pen. I'm not the bubble, I'm not the bubble. Day the markets take another day.